talking with the World Bank. We are agreeing on some reforms of 2 to 3 year reforms under the development policy operation. And so therefore we expect we are expecting 750 million, that is public knowledge, to be disbursed by March of next year. Again, we have engaged with them to see whether they can. There's room for additional financing. They have said this discussion we can also put on the table. And then finally, again, we'll be having the 6th review of the IMF in June of next year. And from that, we should get another disbursement of roughly 530 million. So over the next few months, we'll be expecting to get quite a significant amount of concessional resources. And I don't want maybe Kenyans to think, oh, this is piling debt on top of debt. This is actually replacing expensive debt with cheaper debt, and especially domestic expensive debt will be replacing with cheaper external financing. On the issue that I just touched on foreign investments, I think that we should again be expecting some portfolio inflows. And then fourth, Chair, is what we have done to deepen the foreign exchange market. Because a deep foreign exchange market also will be able to stabilize the exchange rate. And I won't go into the specifics now. I'll go to them when I make the presentation. But the background was that the interbank market basically was non-functioning last year, and even up to the first quarter of this year. And that's when we began to resuscitate the interbank foreign exchange market. And it has worked. Is it perfect? No, not yet. So when I did join the central bank in towards June, end of June, I did have a meeting with the 10 key banks that deal with foreign exchange, because I want to understand why is there more foreign exchange going into the interbank market. And then they said, oh, there's this circular that was done in 2011, or there's another circular that was done in 2050, and then there's this, and this. And I went through, I looked at the circulars, and really I saw no reason why we still needed to have those circulars. And so we repealed those circulars. And then they had also been prohibited from electronic brokerage trading. So again, we didn't see really the reason why we should prohibit banks from electronic trading. So we also agreed that they could do that. And but of course there needs to be some training, and they also needed to join the Bloomberg and the other one, the Reuters, which now they have. And we expect by the end of next week, by the end of this month, that we should now see an interbank market, and where the banks are trading electronically. So I think so we have engaged the banks. We have had what they require. We have implemented what they said that they require. So now it's for the banks to deliver on their end of the bargain. So well, of course, we've also had some concerns as a central bank about the spreads. We've looked at the spreads from April to October, and the average spread is roughly like 3.4 shillings. But that's the average. We've seen some banks have spreads that are higher. By spreads, I mean the difference between the interbank rate and let's say the retail rate. So the average is about 3.4. But there are some, obviously, it's an average. There are some below that, and there are some that are higher than that. The ones who are higher than that, we have identified them. We have written to them to try for them to explain to us why their rate should be above that average. And so we are receiving those responses, and we will analyze them and see what therefore needs to be done. But it's a concern to us. We are taking actions to find out why those banks are doing what they are doing, and hopefully within the 2 weeks they'll respond, and then we'll take whatever actions that will be required. And then finally, Chair, I've set up a team now at the Central Bank just to basically to look at the penalties for breach or non-compliance with banking regulations, because I do feel that we need to strengthen that part of the penalties. I think they have not been reviewed for a long time, and and sometimes I get the impression that some banks, the penalties are so low, they are not deterring banks from doing certain things. So that's an area we are reviewing, and I'm hopeful that this committee will be able to help us in that area. So I stopped there, Chairman. Then I can, since I think I've covered most things, I can go quickly through their presentation.
So, honourable members, we've provided copies just for your comfort. Proceed, Mr. Kamau.
So, Chair, if we go to the first chart, just shows what I was talking about. The demand for foreign exchange and the supply. And we've shown the figures from all the way from January 2021 to actually August of 2023. And the blue, the dark blue is the supply, and the light blue is the demand. And you can see basically on a month-to-month basis, most of the times there's an excess demand. Yeah? Of course, now we see in August of this year a bit of a reversal where the supply actually exceeds demand. But so this is part of the structural issues I'm talking about that we need to address, so that we have a larger supply of foreign exchange on a sustainable basis. The second chart shows the depreciation and the weakening of the...
Hold on, Mr. Governor. I think I would like a clarification from the statement you just made. If you look at we're on page 1 of your presentation, right?
Yes.
The graph for FX supply is a darker shade of blue.
Yes.
And the FX demand is a lighter shade of blue.
Right.
So if you check on August 2023, then it means the supply was higher than the demand.
That's what I said.
So the supply of US dollars was actually higher than the demand?
Yeah, for that 1 month, yes. But if you look at consistently over the many months and years, you can see that the demand has always mostly been higher than supply.
In that case, with the supply being higher than the demand, we should have seen a reduction in the price and not an increase. And yet in the month of August, you've had the highest ever exchange rate of Kenyan shillings against the USD.
Yeah, I think, Chairman, this is not a rate that can be reduced in 1 month. But you could see a slowdown in the depreciation. There was a slowdown in the depreciation around June up to September. There was a slowdown in the depreciation. But now, is October going to be different? And so, or is it going to revert back to to the other months. So that's why I'm saying that we need to address this on a more sustainable. Not 1 month. It's there's a bit of excess. The next month is the demand exceeds supply. There needs to be a way where consistently and for many months the supply exceeds the demand. So number 2 shows basically the depreciation of currencies, and you can see, other than perhaps the Morocco and Botswana, most other countries have experienced depreciation of their exchange rate, all the way from Nigeria, which has lost 74% of their value, Angola 64%, but we do have, and Botswana is a particular case because it produces diamonds and always has huge balance of payment surpluses. Slide number 3 shows the point I was making earlier about what happened last year. And you can see, even just focusing on the US, the federal funds rate, which is the light blue line, you can see from mid-2022, the rate has been increasing almost every time the Federal Reserve met. It's only, I think, in the last meeting that the rates were not changed, but they have been increasing, and it's not just the U.S. You can see the U.K., Bank of Japan, Bank of Canada. They've all raised their interest rates quite significantly, and obviously this had an impact of drawing investments towards their countries and having a negative impact on the various exchange rates. The next table is the factors which have been supporting the stability of currencies in neighboring countries. And I did mention that there were some fundamental reasons, and then there was also the reason that for us we had an overvalued exchange rate. So let me just take you to the trade balance. Item number 2. We have shown the trade balance for Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya in terms of dollars and in terms of the GDP. And just focusing on the GDP part, you can see Uganda's trade balance has roughly about from 7% to about 8% of GDP. Now, the important thing to note, and we'll come down to item number 5, the reason why that trade balance is high is because imports are high, and imports for Uganda are high because of foreign direct investments. Well, and that's a very important distinction to make. Now, Kenya's trade balance is very high. It's at least averaging 10% of GDP. But it's not because of foreign direct investments. It's more consumer imports and those kind of things. It's even though Uganda's trade balance is 7%, there's a good reason why it's where it is. And of course, you can see for the case of Tanzania, it rises from 3%, 6%, and 6%. Travel receipts. Again, here you'll expect Kenya to be doing well compared to the other countries when it comes to travel receipts. You know, we think we have a very good, strong tourism sector. But again, if you look at the amount of dollars that are coming into the Kenyan economy compared to Uganda and Tanzania, for example, take the year 2022-2023. Uganda, 1 billion. Tanzania, 2.4 billion. And Kenya, 1.2 billion. So Tanzania is almost taking in or getting twice as much in tourism receipts as we are. And it's even worse if you take it relative to GDP. Yeah, if you just look across and look at the year 22-23, which is the last column, you see Uganda travel receipts, it's 2.1% of GDP. Tanzania is 2.9%, and we are 1.1%. The area where we are doing well is remittances. There you can see, again, just look at the very last column. You can see Uganda has 2.8, Tanzania has 0.9, and Kenya has 3.9. So on remittances, definitely we are doing much better than our neighboring countries. And then finally on this table, the foreign direct investment, Chair. There's a lot of investment. In the case of Uganda, you have investments in oil. You have in Tanzania investments in gold. So that when we now look at the foreign direct investments that are coming into Kenya and coming into Tanzania and Uganda, and again look at the last column, you can see that Uganda is attracting investments worth 5% of GDP. Tanzania 1.6% of GDP, and Kenya is only attracting 0.7% of GDP. So, again, that's what I'm saying. Those are the areas that we really need to address in order to get foreign exchange coming in on a more sustainable basis. The next slide, slide number 5. I think I've covered this to cover the interbank market reforms, narrowing the current account deficit, reducing imports, and again, as I said earlier, imports have been reduced. So I think this area, Chairman, we've covered. We have improved sentiment around the Eurobond, engaging investors, and we expect multilateral institutions to provide more financing. The slide number 6 is the current account. We have seen, as I said, there's an improvement in the current account. Imports have reduced, and exports have increased, by the way. So the exchange rate is working the way it's supposed to work, which is really to encourage exports and discourage imports. And when it was very, very strong, when it was overvalued, it used to encourage imports because imports were cheaper, and also used to discourage exports. And that's why we have that structural current account deficit of about 5%. Slide number 7, again, just shows what has happened to imports. I referred to this, the reduction in imports from last year, January to August, the last two columns. So imports have declined from 13.2 to 11.4. And again, I give the reason for that. Exports, slide number 8, they have... we expect exports to remain unchanged this year, and partly, the impact of the exchange rate on exports is there's a lag between when the exchange goes up and when people are encouraged to start producing for exports. And at the same time, there is the fact that there is a big slowdown in growth in Europe has also contributed to the exports not increasing by as much. But the next slide shows the tourism arrivals, and you can see here there is a positive impact. Tourist arrivals, even actually August, was about 55% in 1 month compared to the previous month. So we do expect tourism to continue to do well, and of course the exchange rate does support the tourism sector. Slide number 10 are the remittances. These continue to be robust, Chairman and members of the committee, and you can see even since 2018 there has been an upward trend in remittances, and we expect that to continue. Then the financial market reforms, Chairman, I referred to them in my opening statement, but I didn't give the details. And this is what we have actually agreed with the banks. The banks had wanted the tenor of swaps and Kenya shilling borrowing, where non-resident banks are involved. That had been limited to the tenor was 1 year. We have reduced it to 6 months, which is what the banks had requested. Similarly, there is now no limit in the tenor of swap between residents, and also this includes resident banks within the East African community. Item number 2, the use of electronic brokerage system. They requested for that. We have agreed. Item number 3, we reduced the minimum amount tradable in the interbank market from $500,000 to $250,000. Again, we had a meeting with the banks. They requested for this. And then finally here, we did, with regard to money remittance providers, and also to resuscitate and strengthen the interbank foreign exchange market. We require the MRPs to sell to their corporate customers up to a maximum of $100,000 per day per customer, and then for the rest to go to the interbank in order to deepen the interbank market and get better price discovery. Slide number 12 just shows that the number of banks participating in the interbank market has risen compared to where it was last year. And then finally, slide number 13, in terms of going forward, let me just, it's a short slide, but although I've mentioned some of these things, but let me just go through it quickly. So one is attracting more financial inflows through FDI and other private sector inflows. Also, the need to improve competitiveness to encourage more exports of goods. We need to diversify markets and to facilitate trade. We need to ramp up tourism receipts. We also need to attract more remittance inflows, and I think as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and we should be arranging to go on road trips to even sensitize Kenyans about what is available and specifically with regard to the Dow CSD, so that they can see they can really now invest very, very easily and quickly. And then we continue to reforms of the interbank market, and then address any speculative activity on foreign trading in the banking sector. I think with that, Chair, I end my presentation.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll have the first roundup of questions. We start with Honorable Munyoro there, then Honorable Ruto, Honorable Makilap, and Honorable Adipo here, and lastly Honorable Mboni, in that order. Proceed, Honorable Munyoro.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Governor, for the presentation. I think I have a few questions. One, I would like to know where we stand in terms of net debt to GDP ratio currently. I would also like to seek a clarification because you've stated here that the devaluation of our currencies because it was overvalued. I would like to know whether you have an idea of where it should stabilize or what rate should we expect it to stand on. And then lastly, you've stated that the money you're getting from IMF and all donors is to replace existing loans. Is that for all the currency, all the donor money that you're getting, or is there new loans we are currently acquiring? And my final question is about generally what you think in terms of finance bill, the one that we passed recently, and what the effect has been on our imports, because I've seen that they've gone down, whether we've lost some people to neighboring countries because of the rates that we are charging, also whether you've seen a reduction in the quantities of goods that have been coming into the country. And specifically, I'm talking about Eldoret Airport, where I know we used to receive on an average of 7 flights a day, and currently I hear it's averaging 1 or 2 of imports. I think I'm being told in 2 weeks or so. Thank you.
Okay. Spirito.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, I should confirm not even 2 weeks. I think hardly a month in one is in a month of the cargo flights coming to Eldoret. First of all, Chair, allow me to appreciate a good presentation by Governor Central Bank. Only that the presentation sounds very nice and sweet from your hand, but I want to tell you Kenyans are feeling the pain in it. When you say that the current currency change increase encourages more imports than exports than imports, but the pain of change in dollar uncertainty now causes confusion in the markets. I don't know why on your hand sounds good, but for the multitude of Kenyans, we are really feeling the pain. Chair, allow me to ask a few things. One, from Governor Central Bank. From the chart number, is it chart number 2 or chart number, the first chart on the issue of supply and demand. You're saying August was doing well. The supply was more than the demand. Probably you need to put it in a simple language for Kenyans to know. Kenyans are ready here to know what is the problem. How much, in terms of quantity, the dollar inventory or stock that are there in our in our commercial banks at the moment, in terms of stock? How much is it in your reserves, CBK reserves? This is dollar currency. How much do we have in our street forex bureaus in terms of quantities? And lastly, how much do we expect to be in people's pockets or in their pillows? We are told there are people who are living with dollar currency in their houses, because CBK is a gateway in terms of forex matters are concerned. So Kenyans want to know how much, so that we're able to read and reflect on the issue of demand and supply, if this one will influence the exchange rate. The government recently came up with a policy of government to government, G to G, on matters of fossil fuel. I want to know, what is the impact of this? When government went G to G, has it affected the issue of trading and the traders who are trading on oil sector and the currencies they have and the demand of the currencies in the market or supply? I wish to know what is the effect on that particular execution. I think, Chair, lastly is to appreciate the issue of remittance, that Kenyans, we are doing well, and this is a good lesson to my good friend, my senior, Honorable Mboni, who has been hitting me on Finland issue. Now you see how much Finland is contributing to Kenyan economy. We have over 500 students in Finland, and I want to tell you they are emitting good money. So you need to start planning for that in Mboni and in Kitui. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Makilab.
Thank you, Chairman. A very straight question to the Governor of Central Bank. Most of these things are more academic. Kenyans want a simplified way of doing this. The big question that we are being asked by Kenyans in the market is, what one single thing that has caused the devaluation of Kenya shilling against the US dollar? What is it? What is it that Kenya cannot hold a grip on this exchange rate? Because I try to look at factors support the shilling going forward. These are factors, but Kenyans are saying, what is it that has made it change exactly, so that we cannot go around with a lot of issues, and what can be done, specifics, to stabilize the situation to a state where Kenyan's shilling will be strong. Kenyans believe in you. You are a scholar, you know what is supposed to be done, and you are in the right position to do it. I tend to associate this surplus of $1 in August, and you will tell me whether it is true or not. Whether during this the period when we had a lot of visitors coming for climate change. It came September, but they were booking those kind of things leading to September. Could it be having any relationship with the influx of visitors to our country around that time? Minora has asked an important question, but I just want to make it much better clear. What exactly caused the overvaluation of the dollar against the Kenya shilling? And is it only Kenya that there was overvaluation, or all over? What is it? What specific thing that caused it? The other issue is, of course, you don't expect the Kenyans to do a lot of imports when they have no money in their pockets. You expect the imports to drop, and that's why you are seeing 14%. Because when something is not, when Kenyans do not have the capacity to import things, then you expect it to drop. There is something about food prices. Food prices. If you ask farmers who are producing food commodities what they want the prices of their goods go up. Those of us who come from grain basket areas or even livestock areas, we want the prices of our livestock and the prices of food to go up, because yes, fertilizers were brought, but the cost of fuel has skyrocketed. So there is so many other things that have actually shot up other than the fertilizer issue, subsidy. So those of us who come from those regions, the farmers are saying no. Even the 4,000 shillings for a bag of maize, the farmers in the North Rift today are taking their maize to Uganda at 6,000 shillings. They are running. We used to bring from Uganda, but now we are running away from here. We are taking them to Uganda. How will you protect those farmers? Because and how can these microeconomic things can be able to help the farmers of that particular region, so that there is stability and we get value for our money? And lastly, Chairman, and Ruta has asked is, in your position as governor of Central Bank, have you tried to find out with commercial banks? There could be a group of Kenyans, wealthy Kenyans, commercial banks, who are actually holding dollars to make money out of it. And that's why you cannot see so much in circulation, because it is being micromanaged by cartel system in the country. Have you found out whether there's something like that? Because there could be people hosting in the houses, and banks are holding it, causing the shortage that we are seeing. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Adipo.
Thank you, Chair. Governor, thanks so much. You have given us a lot of light on what's happening with our economy. But one thing which is bothering my mind is that you are not protecting Kenya shillings adequately, because the money is decreasing in value all the time. In fact, I would say in recent times. What are you doing at least to help our currency? Because if you leave it totally for the market, I'm seeing that we are going to be in a very weak position as a country in terms of economy. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask some question on is on foreign direct investment. That's your slide number 4. You said Uganda is beating us. They get 5% of their GDP under this particular slide. Kenya is only 1.1. But much of what sorry, 0.1, which is almost nothing. Now, if I remember what you said, Uganda is getting much of this because of oil. And that brings to my mind the question of the Turkana oil. Bwana Governor, although this may not be your direct responsibility, but I know you have the overall responsibility of advising Kenya government on matters that would strengthen our economy. What do you say about this? Because I feel we know almost nothing about that oil. At one time, we were told crude oil from Turkana was exported, and we would know later how much we got from it. That ended the whole story, and up to now, as for me, we know nothing of what has happened about that oil. I'm saying this because probably if we were getting something from this oil, we would either be like Uganda or we will be in a better position than Uganda. Then the third question I wanted to ask Bwana Governor regards the IMF, they are going to come, and if I remember our past, anytime IMF was coming, everybody was crying, knowing that IMF would give you conditions which probably was making the situation worse. Now they are coming, and you are hopeful that you are going to get some money from there. Was it 700 something, I can't remember. Now, my question is, have they given you any conditions which may be hurtful to us again? Because we know their conditions are very tough, but I appreciate them because relatively they charge very little when we borrow from them, and therefore they are really the right place for us to borrow from, except their conditions sometimes are frightening. Now, finally, I know we passed our finance bill 2022-23 just recently, some 3 months back. And much has been said about that bill. Could you tell us, in case, although 3 months may be very little, you might have not seen the impact, but in case you have seen, what is the impact of that finance bill in terms of our economy? Is it affecting our economy negatively, or is it positive? I'm saying this because I remember during the participation, some manufacturers and businessmen were telling us that if we pass the bill, we are going to force investors out of this country. That's why I'm asking that question, because you see that forcing investors out, you see what it relates to what we have been discussing here. I raise my case, Bwana Governor.
Honorable Mboni, then Honorable Yuna, and lastly, Honorable
Chair, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Governor's Central Bank. I think, really, this paper is very good by any standards, and it really gives us the overall reasons why the Kenya shilling has been depreciating. Apart from the external factors, they are actually internal factors. And, you know, when Parliament was inviting Central Bank to give us highlights, I was actually wondering the role of Central Bank in this, but what is also the role of Parliament in depreciation of these Kenya shillings? And it's very clear when you look at this paper. Parliament itself has played a key role in depreciation of Kenya shillings, and I'll tell you why. When you pass, and what Mheshimiwa said here, when you pass finance bill with high taxation to the investors, what do you expect them to do? You expect them to move outside this country to the neighboring countries, set up production factories, they produce and export back to this country under common tariff protocol. And that's what is happening. I mean, when you look at the foreign direct investment in Uganda, is very high. Do you know the reasons? The incentives in Uganda are better than Kenya. And I'll tell you, Uganda, they are giving factories, farms, free land to set up their production plants in Uganda and export it back to Kenya. And I'll tell you, actually, I had a case of the paint factories, the biggest in Kenya. In fact, they have already moved to Uganda. They have their operation. They have downgraded their operations here, and they are producing in Uganda and in Tanzania and export to Kenya. You can actually look at the paint. We used to be net exporters of paints, but now we are actually net importers of paint. These are the factors which we need to look at, and really, the government need to have a deliberate policy on encouraging investors, encouraging foreign direct investment, so that these things can go down. But I was just wondering, not even wondering, Governor, you said we reduce imports, and I think you need to clarify that. What we need to reduce is imports for consumption, not imports for raw materials, because we need the raw materials to produce. I've talked about the raw incentives. I think that's very important to me. We need to think about how we bring back our factories to start producing. I mean, really, this chart 4 looks terrible, and our balance of payments is really affected. And we should not be very, very proud of saying that we are getting remittances, like my friend what he's talking about, sending some few students to Australia and say that we are doing very well. What we need is to do production in this country so that we can actually create employment and incomes to our people, not taking some few students to Australia and other countries to go and they are just studying there. They are actually part of the problem, because when you are taking them there, what you are doing is that in the short run, you need the foreign exchange to take them there. But in the long run, maybe they can bring some money. But those are actually transfers, not when it comes to national accounts. I know you are an accountant, but me, I know national accounts.
On a Bomboni order, you stop addressing.
Okay, Chair.
We're talking about exchange rate.
Oh yes, yeah. So, Chair, I think let's let that. Two, the things to do with the leather. I think that we have a leather city in Kenyan. At one point, I was a consultant in that setting up that city. And these are some things which we need to leather city in Kenyan, in Machakos, after Mavoko, somewhere there. These are some of the things which you need, because the leather products. We have over 200 leather products, and we produce a lot of leather in this country. These are the kind of investment which you need to invest, and we export the leather. And everybody knows leather products are very expensive. In terms of tourism, I think this is very important to me. Although most of the hotels in this country, they are being supported by domestic tourism, but we also need to bring tourism. Let's not forget about the traditional tourism products. Let's forget about the animals. These white people are seeing the animals. Now they are tired. Now, if you go to a country like Dubai, I'm just from Dubai. Actually, Dubai, they have only 2 products. Then there's a safari, which is actually a Kenyan. Safari is a Kenyan. It's the East African world. They have the Bush Khalifa, the big, tallest building. What else do they have? What do you go and see there? Nothing. But the city is full of people. No? So we should think about other products. We can even start our safari, desert safari in the Chambi Desert. Even a better one than what they have. No? We need to think about what you are saying. Conference tourism, medical tourism. Let's move from going to see few cheetahs and lions and those kind of things. But lastly, just want to ask. This maybe is out of this topic. Where recently we passed the anti-corruption bill, and we want to increase the cash transaction from $10,000 to $15,000. What has happened about that? We have not seen any changes. You go to the bank, they are still stuck at 1 million Kenya shillings deposit or withdraw. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Yula, and then lastly, Honorable Hon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, let me begin by thanking the Governor for this very good presentation. In fact, it has opened up my mind. Governor, while at Marrakech in Morocco, there was a lot of talk in some corners, particularly among the IMF meetings, that Tanzania will soon beat Kenya in the growth. Tanzanian growth is expected to be at around 6%, whereas Kenya might not go beyond 5%. And some of us took some interest to find out, and I think some of the issues have been mentioned by Honorable Mboni. Tanzania, you would hear them say, we are snatching all the investors from Kenya coming to Tanzania. So that means that our foreign direct investments or attraction of investors from outside, we have gone very low. And that's why these neighboring countries are doing much better. And I think you are in a better place to advise the government on these investments issues. The main thing being high taxation. So if we can move to a stage whereby we bring in more investors, I'm sure our foreign exchange inflows will improve. So the other issue I would want to raise with you, Governor, is about digital banking. I don't know what you are thinking about this digital banking. I know some countries are already carrying out experiments. I don't know whether you have any plan to carry out experiments on digital banking, because it is something that is coming up. So even the EU is already carrying out experiments. So possibly you could enlighten us on those two areas.
Asante, Mheshimiwa Kasim.
Thank you, Chair. Governor, thank you for the good presentation. When you look at chart number 4, factors supporting stability in neighboring countries, and my colleagues have raised how the neighboring countries, of course, are doing better than us, and the factors that are there. I don't think we lack capacity as a country, from point number 1 to number 5, or any other factor. So what do you think, in a layman's language? Are we incapable? God blessed us with a lot of blessings, but is it that as people who should be steering this country to the next level are reluctant? Or where do you think the rain has started beating us? Because we cannot just be speaking about this issue here and there. We do this in a good way, spoil it in the other way, or we just become reluctant to act on it. Corruption, of course, being one of it. Laxity, is it patriotism? I don't know. I just want to hear exactly what our problem is. You've spoken about tourism and how we need to revamp our tourism. Our park fees are becoming prohibitive now. You've spoken about medical tourism. Of course, we have the best doctors in the region. But then how best do we tap that? We talk about it all the time, but when do you think we'll start doing actions? Tanzania is really doing well in tourism. They've actually shifted from Kenya. Tourism is no longer going to be our main source of revenue. The other one is on manufacturing. You said our manufacturing is struggling. what do you think we are incapable of doing that we are in this situation now? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable I also have a few follow-up questions, Mr. Governor. You said that for a very long time, the Kenya shilling against the dollar has been overvalued, and that you think was artificial, like that exchange rate was artificial. But, Mr. Governor, I think that was working for us, because when our exchange rate was 100 and now it has gone to over 150, and considering that our debt is denominated in mostly US dollars, that means our debt has become more expensive by around 50%. So maybe should we stick with what was being done before and have that artificial exchange rate because it's good for us? Secondly, Mr. Governor, what is it our neighbors are doing right that we're not doing? And what do we need to do? And I was checking, for example, Uganda shillings exchange rate. January 2023, we were at 31.4. In October, we are at 25. Perhaps one of the lowest ever. For Tanzania shilling, we were January 2022, we were at 20.23. In October, we are 16. And we are the giants in the region. We are economic giants. So what is it our neighbors are doing that we are not doing, and what we need to do? Mr. Governor, I was checking through the foreign exchange trading income for several banks, and I'd like to read out some numbers for you. Equity Bank, their foreign exchange trading income for the first quarter of 2022, that is up to 30th of June 2022, was 1.55 billion. How much have they made this first half in their foreign exchange trading income? 2.7 billion. Around 40% increase in their foreign exchange trading income. Stanbic Bank, the first half of 2022, 4.166 billion. What has happened this first half of this year? 6.015 billion. A whole increase in 2 billion shillings just on their foreign exchange trading income. KCB, they were 3.6 billion first half of 2022. First half of 2023, 4 billion. Diamond Trust Bank, the first half of 2022, 1.45 billion. Where are they the first half of 2023? 2.056 billion. I&M Bank, their foreign exchange trading income was 1 billion the first half of 2022. First half of 2023, 1.5 billion. Citibank, first half of 2022, 700 million. First half of 2023, 1.7 billion. So you can see that there has been a phenomenal increase in the foreign exchange trading income of all commercial banks, in fact, all Tier 1 banks in Kenya. You are the supervisors of this bank, of these banks. So is it then that, then the question is, if you have a financial institution have just one, if you look at their P&L, the income statement, if you have that foreign exchange trading income increase by some as high as 100%, have they become, what do you call them? Is now the core business of these commercial banks speculation on the dollars? And as their supervisor, what are you doing about it? What do you call these agents that to exchange money to? Forex bureaus. So have banks now become forex bureaus? The interest rates for your bonds, I think the one issued, I think this week, is at 18%. So in terms of now the policies the central bank are doing, you have increased your interest rates, or whether it's market or you have increased whatever is happening, to 18%. So that means that banks, without doing anything, they just give you money. We just give them deposits, they take that money to you, and they get 18%. On the other hand, we've seen the numbers that they are getting in terms of profit on FX trading alone, then maybe that could explain why we have contraction in the other sectors, especially manufacturing. Because banks then don't have to really lend money to businesses. They just need to give it to central bank through the T-bills and T-bonds, because your interest rate is around, I think, 18% now, and they just speculate on the exchange rate, and boom, they make supernormal profits. And maybe that's why the other sectors are contracting. So what would be your views about this? And then lastly, even as we're talking about importation, and proud that our importation is what we're importing is going down. But what is the implication on that on import duty? Because again, we have a meeting with KRA this afternoon to discuss the revenue performance for Q1, which is not looking so good. And maybe the policies that you've made about reducing importation actually led to reduced collection in terms of import duty. And where do we achieve a balance? You have a chance to respond, Honorable Mr. Governor. And these questions, you may choose to answer them thematically rather than going one-on-one, because most of them would be called.
And we're trying to explain why they have gone down. And I said part of it is because of some projects have been completed, and therefore the machinery and equipment that was coming in the previous year maybe is not coming in. So that explains part of it. But the other part is some local manufacturers are picking up manufacturing here instead of importation. And that's what I said. If you look at the first 8 months, actually manufacturing to the EAC countries has increased by at least 20%. And that's, in terms of our breakdown, I think we have significant increase to Uganda, I think mainly cement, and then also some iron and some iron sheets to Rwanda. So it was just more of an observation, and of course I think, as the Honourable Bonnie had indicated, maybe the decline in others could be because of the exchange rate, and of course we would still want to support the intermediate imports. But the tariff structure is such that it favors the intermediate items and also the raw products. On the issue of the 18%, again, Chairman, this is not that money is not going to the CBK. This is money that is being mobilized to go to the National Treasury, and the way we deal with this issue of really interest rate is to reduce government demand for borrowing. And you're absolutely right. The more banks lend to the government, the more they crowd out the private sector, and then the private sector does not thrive as much as it should. So. And I did say it earlier. So what the government is doing is, one, containing expenditures. You've seen the circulars on even travel. Again, the supplementary budget is in Parliament. I think it's in Parliament. The supplementary budget is about cutting expenditures, not the usual supplementary budget of increasing expenditures. On the revenue mobilization, I mean, you've seen how much emphasis has been put on the KRA to meet its revenue targets, because that's the only way you are going to reduce borrowing. And then finally, the issue I mentioned on the issue of additional external financing that we are getting, and I think there was also a question about other donor funding and availability, but this additional financing that we will be seeking, from the multilateral, the cheap financing that I talked about earlier, that is part of this story, because once we get it, the Treasury would now have relatively cheaper funding to finance their development expenditures, and will borrow less. And then once they start to borrow less, then that interest rate on the Treasury bill that they issue, then that can start coming down, or at least stabilize. So I think that is ultimately the solution to the problem, and I agree with you. Unless now we do that, it becomes very easy just for the banks to be able to put their money in Treasury bills and sit back without having to do with the private sector where there's a bit of risk. There were questions about the net debt. I think that's a ratio we can give to you another time, but the last time I looked at the net present value of debt to GDP was somewhere in the range of like around 64% of GDP. Yeah, okay, 64.4% of GDP. So we do expect that that will go down to the 55 that Parliament has approved over the next 3-4 years. And the reason why we the 55 is targeted is because that's where we think that for our country in our situation that's the sustainable level of debt. I think on the donor funding, I think I've answered that. Kasim, I think on the I didn't. He's not here. He has left. But I didn't want to minimize that Kenyans are not feeling the pain of the.
All the questions belong to the chair. So just.
Oh, sorry, chair.
Respond to the chair.
Sorry, chair. On the issue, I certainly did not mean to minimize the pain that the exchange rate is depreciated. It has an impact. Sometimes change is never painless, and so we are going through some adjustment pain, and perhaps. So I do recognize that part. On the stock of the dollars, I think, Chair, we have looked at whether there's been a sudden increase in the volume of dollar deposits, and from what we have seen, there isn't a sudden increase in the flow of dollars into deposits. But certainly what has happened is that when we look at the stock of dollars, let's say at the beginning of the year, and the stock of dollars at the, let's say, end of September, there's definitely a substantial increase. But when we try to dig into it, you find that part of it is explained by the fact that the exchange rate has depreciated. So we have not seen that issue of wealthy holders of dollars or cartels in the banking system. But if anybody has that information, certainly we would want to look into it. The G2G. The G2G definitely has helped a lot in terms of reducing pressure on the exchange rate. I think we've established what is driving the exchange rate is really that imbalance between demand and supply. So, the moment you do remove a bit of the demand, which is what the G2G did, you reduce the pressure on the exchange rate. Yeah? Which is to say, if you didn't have that arrangement, there will be much more demand in the foreign exchange market, and the exchange rate suddenly would be higher than where it is now. I think I tried to explain there are quite a number of things that cause the depreciation. And as I said, one of the major ones was the fact that the U.S. and advanced countries raised their interest rates very aggressively and in order to fight their inflation rates. And as you know, even up to now, they have not even reached the level of inflation rates that they target, because they target an inflation rate of 2%. The US is still at 3.7%. And if you disaggregate even that 3.7, if you look at their core inflation, which is the one really that responds to monetary policy and fiscal policy, you find that that is even higher. It's like 4%, at least 4%. So that raising of interest rates had a global impact on foreign currency, and that's why we showed you that first slide. That was the second slide in the presentation. I think I just want to agree very strongly with what Honorable Mboni, his intervention. That leather city and his point on tourism, and I also want to give him my experience when we went to Morocco. I went to Morocco with David. Morocco, the hotel we were staying with was always full with tourists, and then. And in our minds, we were asking, surely, what really is in Morocco that all these people are coming to see? So, and one of the last days, we took a vehicle and we were taken around to see the tourist sites. And you go to see, maybe you see an old church or an old mosque or an old, but the number of tourists they receive per year is something like 11 million. Ours is 2 million. So, and we offer so much more. So there's something there, and I just wanted to support your observation. There must be something we can do in tourism to be able to increase those numbers. I think on the anti-corruption bill, the 10,000 to 15,000. I think that is now the law, and we'll find out why that is still at 1 million, because we did and Parliament did approve the increase from 10,000 to 15,000. I think the issue of food prices. I think it's. I agree with you, because I think one of sometimes the mistakes that happens is that when food prices are very high, the consumers obviously are the ones that complain, but the producers are the ones who are making the money. So there has to be some kind of a happy balance where, again, you don't lower the prices to the extent that you disincentivize the farmers, because then you're going to face the same problem next year. But at the same time, you also want to ensure that the price is also not so high for the consumer. So it's a balancing act, and I think what the position that the government has taken in terms of the 4,000, I think is I think it goes towards solving that dilemma between the supply and demand. I think Honorable Adipo, I think, also raised some points there which I was also like to support. And he mentioned the issue of Turkana oil, and if there is any way that we can actually move to final production in Turkana, that is the kind of thing that can really have now a sustainable impact on the flow of foreign exchange into the economy. And I don't know what we can do from the point of view of the central bank, but certainly if I meet people from the Ministry of Energy, So it's those kind of actually investments, and that's why even as the president, the president has been to China, he's talked to investors, he's been to the US, he's been to California, he's talked to investors. Those are the kind of things that we need to bring in order to have a more permanent and sustainable inflow of foreign exchange. On the IMF and people crying when they come, I think already we already have an ongoing program with the IMF. In fact, now we have kind of three going on at the same time. We have what they call the ECF, Extended Credit Facility. We have the EFF, Extended Fund Facility, and then in the last when they came here last time, we also agreed on a resilience and sustainability facility, which is more to deal with climate change issues. So we have already agreed on the items to address, and for December, obviously, we met all of them, and the disbursements were made. So what they'll be coming to do is look at the performance through June of this year, and I believe we've also did well. But all those are basically in public knowledge. There's nothing new that they are going to come and put additional conditionalities on the existing program. But I did say that going forward, our intention will be to ask that they augment the resources they are going to give us from the 400 million to something higher. And that something higher would also now be used to reduce the amount of domestic borrowing from the National Treasury and address the chairman's concerns about the higher interest rates and the crowding out of the private sector by government. I don't know, Chair, whether I've covered generally most issues, but if I haven't, maybe I can. Somebody can prompt me.
Thank you, Governor. Maybe the first thing that comes to my head is what if we don't get the $1 million from the donor? So what happens? And I raised a very concerned question about the foreign exchange trading income of commercial banks. I don't think you've addressed that. I also asked you say that the exchange rate has been overvalued for quite some time, and our Kenyan shilling had been overvalued for quite some time, and that was a temporary exchange rate. And I said, then don't you think then that temporary exchange rate is better than now where we are, because it has where the exchange rate is now has a multi effect on many things, including our collections in terms of taxes, and most importantly our repayment of debt.
Maybe Chairman, so that they can answer both. Governor, the rise of difference of $1 leads to 46 billion debt in our country. Now we are at 150, 151. Don't you think the debt will skyrocket in these few months as a result of this exchange rate? And secondly, Governor, as an expert who has worked in Bretton Woods institutions, tell Kenyans on eye to eye where they will be by 30th of December in terms of exchange rate. Will it be in 200 or less? And this false thing that our chairman has consistently asked you is, if there was exaggerated, how do we sort out the exaggeration so that we become normal?
Mr. Governor, you may respond to those follow-up questions.
I think I think on the issue of the overvaluation, as I said, it's not a new thing. These were even discussions that were there some 5-6 years ago. And Chairman, there are some you can't hold an overvalued exchange rate forever. And what normally happens is you lose reserves trying to defend a particular level of the exchange rate. Then you deplete your reserves and you get to the point where you can't do it anymore. At that point, your exchange rate is so much misaligned from where it should be that and you don't have the instruments to be able to address it, that when you now get a shock like the shock that we experienced last year, then you have this significant increase in the depreciation. So to say that we can just maintain an overvalued exchange rate, it's not possible. You're going to lose all your reserves, and that medicine will be even worse. Because imagine, Chair, you try to maintain an overvalued exchange rate, and our level of reserves right now is, as I said, it's about almost $7 billion. So if we were to lose more reserves, we would go into a situation where that even foreign investors and even those people who have lent us loans, where they start wondering, will we be able to have the foreign exchange to pay our debts? So introduce a lot of uncertainty, and the exchange rate will still depreciate if it's not at the level that the fundamentals, the competitiveness, if it's not at that level that is determined, when it's artificial, definitely it will depreciate. And I understand the point you've made, and it makes debt service higher and debt payments. And that's why we are saying now as I said, we have in the coming months what we've done. We've talked to investors. There was a lot of uncertainty before about what we are going to do about the Eurobond. Now it's very clear, and that's what I said. The interest rates on our Eurobond dropped from 20% to 14.2% within 2 days, because there was a better now understanding by foreign investors. And so that is one window of where the foreign exchange can come in through portfolio, because these people are now satisfied that the economy is, from their perspective, is doing better than other economies, and the reserves position will still be strong. And so you have removed that uncertainty, and they can now come in. And the discussion that we are having also with the multilateral institutions and some of the regional development banks, that is also part of increasing the level of foreign exchange, increasing the supply of foreign exchange into the economy, so that we can change that balance between supply and the demand for foreign exchange. And so I am very aware of the concerns you have, but those are now the things that we are trying to do in order to forestall any further depreciation of the exchange rate. Yes, Chairman.
You still have not answered on commercial banks.
Sorry. I think the question you raised was the forex income from the various banks has increased, and you've given the numbers, which we agree that has happened. And one of the things I mentioned even in my opening statement is that we have written. I have written to the 10 banks with where there is a very wide spread, and we'll be following up with the banks They have not all fully responded. We are going to follow up and then really find out whether there's really an explanation for why the gaps, the white gaps should be there.
Mr. Governor, that is quite worrying, because considering that this has been a trend, and you're saying what you've done is written to them and they have not responded, and you are their regulator, you're the one who renewed their license, you're the one who licensed them.
Sorry, I meant we just wrote to them in the last week or so we're expecting their responses shortly.
Okay, so when will we hear from you on that? Because now we're tempted to invite the banks, but I don't think that's what we want to do as a committee. We would rather you do it, because you're the regulator, and maybe perhaps on the same. Some data there shows that $1.3 trillion is actually held in people's accounts in terms of USD. And again, the sensitivity to this is you don't want to limit people's choices. If I choose to hold my money in dollars or in gold, as long as it's not illegal, then you can't really dictate to them. But maybe, what do you think you could do to mop out this, to have them release this dollars into the market? I remember when we were vetting you for the position of central bank governor, you had mentioned of a possibility of issuing a dollar-denominated bond, but I think you changed your mind after that. So what interventions do you think we would need to do to encourage these people to have these dollars back into the market, just to reduce the spread and reduce increase the supply and maybe reduce the gap? You mentioned about the reserves, and I'm checking some charts here that in January 2023, our reserves was around I think there's $6 billion, and this. I'm not sure whether it's billion or trillion. The chart is not showing whether it is billions or trillions, but it seems to be the lowest. Because if you look at the charts, then that means we are the lowest ever in terms of our reserves. What are you doing about it? And maybe is this also a contributor of the challenge we have with the exchange rate? And I think Honorable Yule and Honorable Adipo have follow-up questions. And then we'll give a chance to Honorable Makilap. Honorable Yule, Honorable Adipo, then Honorable Makilap, and then Honorable Boni, then Central Bank Governor will respond.
Chair, there was an issue on the movement of investors from Kenya to Tanzania. The more we lose investors, the more we increase unemployment in Kenya, and that will create a very dangerous situation. So we should look for a way where we can attract in as many investors and retain those ones we have. Now, will that help in retaining the investors? Thank you.
Honorable Adipo.
Thank you, Chair. Now, there is the governor mentioned something very important on America, that they are trying to reduce their inflation. That's a measure to protect and stabilize the dollar. Now, in Kenya, do you have any measure that you use to protect and also stabilize Kenya shillings? Because I see it that you have left it totally to the market forces, which we know are very strong against us. Where are we going to end? I wanted to know that. And the last one is regarding cost of living in Kenya, together with the cost of manufacturing and the cost of business, because that is really what is forcing us to go down. Uganda going up, Tanzania going up. You as the head of the monetary issues, what steps are you taking to advise the government so that we can actually stabilize our money? Because Without that, I don't see us getting anywhere.
Honorable Makila?
Chairman, you know why I was insisting is because there were some things that I asked but was not answered properly. I asked Governor Central Bank, who is the regulator. You know you are an expert. We are simply asking you, we are representatives of Kenyans. Where do you expect us in December, under these circumstances? Where do you expect the dollar by December or any year? So that if we have children, we plan. If we have travels, we plan. Because that's become a problem. And there's something that the chairman and I asked, but you answered it in a way that was not very clear. But I just want to find out, because when you say there was an exaggeration of our issue, exchange rate, I simply asked you, then what is normal? If there was an exaggeration, then what is normal? And finally now, those were things that you want to clarify. And finally, as an expert in this area, our country is losing in foreign direct investment to our neighbors. What critical products or what taxes have our competitors, our neighbors, have as an advantage against Kenya? My people in Baringo, Kabarnet, they go for shopping for clothes and other things in Uganda. And yet Uganda is a landlocked country. So what is it that you can recommend to Parliament? That please relax on this and this to retain the investors not going to our neighbors.
Thank you. And lastly, Honorable Mboni?
Chair, thank you, Chair. Governor, you actually mentioned that the Kenya shilling has been overvalued, and that to me is a deliberate measure to make sure that the Kenya shilling is strong. Maybe probably you can tell us who has been responsible for overvaluation of Kenya shilling, and why remove the support at this hour when even the world economy is not doing well. Thank you.
Asante. Governor, please respond to those questions.
So, Chairman, let me start with your, I think on the you mentioned something about $1.3 trillion in deposit accounts, which I think that's in dollar. It's in shillings, right? It's in shillings, not.
It's around 1.3 trillion
shillings
being held by individuals in dollars.
Yeah. So, and I had addressed that issue, which was that we have not seen, a significant increase in terms of the volume of dollars, but looking from the beginning of the year to where we are now, to the 1.3, part of it is explained by those valuations, the depreciation of the shilling. You mentioned about how are we trying to bring in more foreign exchange into the banking system, and also mentioned the issue that at one point I had mentioned about issuing a dollar-denominated bond. I think on the dollar-denominated bond, what we are trying to see. The whole idea was whether we can get additional dollars into the economy, not dollars to move from the banking system to the central bank, but actually an increase in dollars from abroad to Kenya. And so that's still an area that we are trying to look at, because we've seen some other countries where they are able to actually identify who their nationals are abroad and be able to tailor products like that to them, so that when the money comes in, it is in addition to what is already in the economy. The thing that we want to avoid is where even Kenyans who are holding shillings, now they convert the shillings into into the bonds, and that again could have an impact on the exchange rate, because now you are increasing the demand for exchange rate, and also whether that might also cause dollarization of the economy. So it's an issue that we are still discussing, but I think those things need to be worked out to ensure that there is actually a net inflow of foreign exchange into the economy. And as I did mention earlier, even with the Dow CSD, the Central Depository Securities Depository, it's now very easy for Kenyans to be able to invest from their desks in New York, in Mexico, or wherever they are, provided they have an account. They don't have to come to the central bank to register. They can just do it from wherever they are. And so that is also part of bringing the foreign exchange into the banking system. And all the other measures I mentioned to you, Chairman, that we have agreed with the banks were designed to deepen this foreign exchange market and for them to be able to bring foreign exchange into the interbank market. Our discussion with them, which we're going to follow up, is that we wanted to target sales of foreign exchange to the interbank of 25% of wherever they buy. That is the target that we agreed with them, and so once this process is completed of them implementing the measures, that is what the discussion we're going to have with them and tell them, look, we have done our end. Let's see how you get to the 25% that we agreed. On the issue of reserves, I may not have 6 billion sounds on the low side, but essentially your question was what are we doing about increasing reserves? And from our point, as I said, reserves right now are about 6.9 billion. We have made projections of our reserve position from now, October, until the June of 2024. And we have looked at all the debt service payments that are going to be made between now and then, including the 2 billion of the Eurobond. We have also looked at all the potential inflows into the central bank. Yeah, even without including any additional disbursements from the IMF or the World Bank, just going on along with the programs that we have agreed with them. And at the end of June, we will still have the 7 billion that we have, notwithstanding the fact that the debt service payments have increased quite significantly. Mr. Oyula mentioned about attracting investors, and I think the process that we have started. I said when we went to Marrakesh, I personally spoke to 130 investors. We had investor meetings with 130 investors to explain to them what is going on in Kenya. And that's why I said the positive sentiment from those meetings is what caused the interest rate to come from 20% to 14.2%. And even last week, again, I had some meeting with investors at the central bank. So we have removed that uncertainty about what is going to happen with respect to the Eurobond. So I expect more inflows coming in for two reasons. One is that increased confidence by the investors. And then two, the interest rate differential I mentioned earlier, because we did raise the interest rate on for the CBR by 100 basis points in June. So we have raised interest rates more than the US has. And so that interest differential should also help in terms of stemming the outflow of portfolio outflows, and also, but at the same time, encourage the inflows. But I think generally too, even on the issue of foreign direct investments, because as you've observed, our investments to GDP ratio, foreign direct investment to GDP ratio of 0.7, is relatively small compared to the neighboring countries. But I believe that the measures that now we are putting in place, including in the budget, and in the budget I mentioned, because I was somewhat involved in the budget process, and we identified some 9 key value chains. And really, I think for the first time, we're able to do consistent to include budgetary allocations for value chains. And that's the one Mheshimiwa Mboni had mentioned about the leather. So we looked at leather, we looked at the value chain for leather, we looked at where ministries were in terms of that value chain, and funded the activities of the ministry so that there was no gap in the value chains. And so there was leather, there was textiles, there was milk, I think there was rice, there was edible oils, we had the building materials, and mining, and the blue economy. So if we're able to do that, that will be part of now even addressing the issues of the trade balance, our exports. It should also encourage the foreign direct investments. So I think we are moving in the right direction. If we continue also with the fiscal consolidation that we have agreed as a country to implement, that also will encourage foreign direct investments into the country. I think on the steps to stabilize the exchange rate, as I said, we have now the expectation of foreign investors now coming in because of the removal of uncertainties. We have external financing that is also now coming in shortly. All this will be additional foreign exchange into the market, and should reduce the pressure on the shilling exchange rate. The measures we have agreed with the banks, and which will follow up, if they can start now putting more foreign exchange into the interbank market, that will also ease the pressure on the exchange rate.
Thank you very much, Governor. I think we have extensively conversed on this matter. And as you know, it's a great concern again of Kenyans. Part of the reason why the imports have reduced, even importation of some critical products that cannot be bought locally, is business people are saying they don't want to import, because when they give a price, then they don't know at what time, at what cost they'll be able to sell it. And this becomes very, very, it's not making our business environment conducive. So do everything you in your power. And I'm trying to go through the Central Bank Act, and you have the power, Section 33Q, to revoke or suspend a license of anybody or any licensed, whether it is a licensed banks or licensed forex dealers, if you feel that they are driving this further depreciation of the shilling. Because as you've been all able to see, the increase in the profits for banks on their foreign exchange trading income is really, really quite phenomenal and quite worrying. And it's not wrong for them to make a profit, but for them to make a profit at the expense of our country, of our businesses, I think it's really not good. So we would really like to urge the banks to be patriotic enough. Our profits are good, but you will not have people to make profits from. If the exchange rate continue doing this, if we are not able to repay our debt because our Kenyan shilling has depreciated so much, we like it that you've already written to them, and really encourage you to enforce strictly those regulations that you made to those commercial banks, so that we can rest this matter on the exchange rate. Just to inform you, this committee the day before yesterday adopted the Financial Market Conduct Bill as one of the committee bills. Will be, when it's published, we'll be seeking your views on the same, because we feel there's a need to have not regulation, to have a piece of legislation, an act of parliament that regulates the conduct of players in the financial sector. So when it's published, we'll be expecting to hear from you. So I think at this time I'll give you a chance to make your closing remarks. And also, I think some people, the digital lenders had a concern on licensing. That there are quite a number of digital lenders that have applied for licenses at Central Bank, but it has taken a while before you have approved any new licenses. So you should maybe take the time to update on the progress on that. So you have something you want to say?
Chairman, I think I will be walking out of this room after asking 2 questions 3 times, not being answered. So let me give it to you that maybe the Central Bank has no idea about what I've asked. Okay. And we leave it there. Okay. Because I simply ask, what's our focus by December? We are family people, we are Kenyans, and we want to do some planning. Is it not a fair question? And I said, what happens if this is exaggeration? Then what is normal? Those are very simple questions. But I take it to myself that the governor does not have, my good friend, the governor does not have answers, and I'll walk out of this room to face my people that there is no answers about that area.
To be fair to the central bank governor, the matters of what the exchange rate will be is subject to really the market. And the governor cannot dictate what the exchange rate is going to be. But those interventions, hopefully, that we are oversighting on will lead to something. So. But anyway, respond to that and make your closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair. I think you have very aptly answered the question from Maklab. So I think, Chair, just to thank the committee, I think, for giving us this opportunity to come and give an overview of economic development in the country, and more specifically with regards to the issue of the exchange rate. I want to assure you and the committee members we're doing everything we can to ensure that we stop the depreciation of the shilling, and I have given you all the actions that we are currently undertaking. On the issue of digital lenders, as far as I know, we have not slowed down on issuing licenses, but if you have some information on that, please let me know. On the financial market conduct, we will obviously be looking forward to seeing that, Chairman. But just allow me to give you a bit of some background on the, without taking us back, on the foreign exchange market. Last year, August of last year, we had a backlog of about 6 months for foreign exchange, and by December it came down to 5 months. Then when we resuscitated the foreign exchange market in March, again we were able to reduce it, and then by May, June, there was no longer a backlog. And I remember in the first few days when I joined the central bank, I did talk to some investors who at that time were very concerned about they could not get their money from Kenya. You know, there was this delay and backlog, and so that itself was a disincentive for investors not to come. So I just say that as we look at the financial market conduct bill, so that Now, we have done a lot. We actually done a lot because now there's no backlog in the foreign exchange market. We are now addressing the issue of the depreciation of the currency. So let's not do something that can again upset the perception of investors who will now are planning to come back to Kenya, but only now to see, oh, is there going to be a restriction there? What restriction is going to be there? So I just thought I'll give that a bit of our background to say we're not where we should be 100%, but we've had some significant improvement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'd asked about the licensing of digital lenders.
Oh, I thought I answered that. I said we have not. I don't think we have delayed or refused to give licenses to digital lenders.
Yes, and maybe a clarification. The Financial Conduct Bill is not on the financial markets. It is mainly on especially digital lenders. This concern where you guarantee somebody, someone just takes your contact and then you are said to have guaranteed somebody a loan, or where they keep calling people, your mother, your father, everybody, saying that you've, especially the digital lenders, you issued regulations on the same. So we're just tightening it further because now an act of parliament is stronger in terms of its legal implication than just regulations. So it's not the financial market. No, that's not it. So don't worry, the investors should relax. Thank you very much, Central Bank Governor. We look forward to having a good engagement sometime next week. The Secretariat will let you know of the days so that we handle the other matter, especially on the issue of A&A and just orientation about how you carry on your business and how we can be of more support to you as you carry out your work on fiscal and monetary policy as the Central Bank of Kenya. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. So, honorable members, we have another very important business this afternoon on the revenue performance by Kenya Revenue Authority. We expect to start at 2:30 at Committee Room 9.